Welcome to Voices on My Book, where we explore faith, peace, and the hard questions at the heart of conflict. Today, we're asking, what did the early church actually believe about Israel? To help us unpack this, I'm joined by theologian and patristic scholar, Dr. Elias Markarian, from the St. Athanasius Theological Institute. Dr. Markarian, thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's a gift to be part of this important conversation.
Let's begin with a simple but deep question. When we say Israel in the early congregation, what were the first believers thinking?
Excellent starting point. When early Christians heard Israel, they didn't think primarily of a modern nation state. They were immersed in the Hebrew Scriptures. Israel to them meant the covenant people of God, those chosen through Abraham, bearing the promises of Torah and called to be a light to the nations. Now, once Jesus' life, death, and resurrection became central, the early church wrestled deeply with the question, what happens to Israel's story now?
And how did they answer that?
Well, we see three key currents in early Christian thought. One, fulfillment, not replacement. The earliest theologians, think of Justin Martyr or Irenaeus, saw Jesus as the fulfillment of Israel's hopes, not the replacement of Israel. They believed that the promises to Abraham were expanded through Christ to include all nations. But that didn't erase Israel. It expanded the family. Two, continuity through Christ. They read Paul seriously, especially Romans 9 through 11. Paul mourned that many of his Jewish brothers had not accepted Jesus as Messiah, but he also declared, God has not rejected his people. That tension between heartbreak and hope is something the early church carried forward. Three, a call to humility. The congregation fathers warned against arrogance. In fact, Paul's metaphor in Romans 11 of the olive tree with Gentiles as wild branches grafted in was a strong reminder. Do not boast over the natural branches. The early congregation knew they were recipients of mercy, not conquerors of Israel's legacy.
That's powerful, and it sounds very different from the political arguments we hear today.
Yes, very different. The early congregation wasn't trying to build political alliances. They were concerned with faithfulness to God's story. For them, Israel wasn't a political entity to defend or oppose. It was a theological reality to understand, a people with a purpose in God's redemptive plan.
What about the land? Did the church fathers ever connect the promises of land to modern ideas of territory?
This is where things get interesting. The early congregation spiritualized many of the land promises. They saw the true inheritance as Christ himself, not a geographical space. Hebrews 11 says the patriarchs were looking for a better country, a heavenly one, and Augustine later taught that the congregation was a pilgrim people, seeking a city whose builder is God. This doesn't mean the land of Israel is meaningless. It means the early Christians saw it as symbolic, pointing to something greater.
That could challenge a lot of assumptions today.
Indeed, it invites humility again. Our loyalty must be to God's purposes, not national borders. The early congregation believed that any theology of Israel must lead to justice, mercy, and peace, not domination.
If the early congregation were here today watching the conflict unfold in Israel and Palestine, what do you think they'd say?
I believe they would remind us that every person bears the image of God, whether Jew, Palestinian, or Gentile. They would say, "Blessed are the peacemakers," not because peace is easy, but because it reflects the kingdom of God. And they would urge us to avoid theological tribalism, because Jesus died to break down the dividing wall of hostility.
Dr. Markarian, thank you. That was deeply clarifying and deeply convicting.
Thank you for making space for conversations like this. May we all seek peace, grounded in truth and grace.
If this episode spoke to you, share it, comment below, and subscribe for more interviews like this. And if you're reading Seeking Peace, Biblical Solutions to the Israeli and Palestinian Conflict, reflect on how theology can be part of healing, not division. We'll see you next time on Voices on My Book.